Most people use money emotionally, while wealthy people use money strategically. That difference alone changes the direction of someone's entire financial future. Average consumers often see money as something to spend, upgrade, celebrate with, or use for temporary comfort. Wealthy people usually see money as a tool designed to create more ownership, more leverage, and more future freedom. The average person receives income and immediately begins thinking about what they can buy. The wealthy often begin thinking about what they can build. That shift completely changes financial outcomes over time because spending and investing create opposite long-term effects. One removes future options, while the other expands them. Most people are taught to focus almost entirely on income. Get a better job, earn more money, work harder. But wealthy individuals understand that income alone does not create wealth. Ownership creates wealth. Assets create wealth. Cash flow creates wealth. Cash flow creates wealth. Someone earning a high salary while spending almost everything may look successful externally, while remaining financially fragile internally. Meanwhile, someone building investments, businesses, and appreciating assets may appear ordinary while quietly becoming financially independent. The wealthy understand that every dollar carries opportunity costs. If money is constantly consumed by lifestyle upgrades, there is less capital available for investments that could generate future income. This is why rich people often think differently about purchases. Instead of asking whether they can afford something, they ask whether the purchase produces value or removes future flexibility. That mindset prevents emotional consumption from controlling financial behavior. Another major difference is that wealthy people often separate status from spending. Average consumers frequently use money to signal success to others. Expensive cars, luxury brands, upgraded lifestyles, and visible consumption become symbols of achievement. Wealthy people are usually more focused on acquiring assets than projecting an image. Many financially successful individuals live below what society expects because they prioritize freedom over appearance. They understand that every unnecessary payment increases dependency on future income. Over time, this creates a massive difference in financial stability. One person becomes trapped, maintaining appearances, while another quietly builds long-term control over their time, income, and future. Another major difference is how wealthy people think about cash flow. Most average consumers focus on monthly payments, while wealthy people focus on long-term income generation. Average financial thinking asks, "Can I afford this payment?" Wealthy financial thinking asks, "Will this produce future cash flow?" That single question changes everything. Most middle-class households continuously acquire liabilities. Cars lose value. Consumer electronics lose value. Luxury purchases lose value. Yet monthly payments continue for years. Wealthy individuals prioritize acquiring assets that either appreciate or generate ongoing returns. Businesses, investments, dividend-producing assets, real estate, intellectual property, and scalable systems all create leverage over time. The wealthy understand that money should eventually begin working independently instead of requiring constant labor forever. This is why they often reinvest aggressively instead of immediately upgrading their lifestyle every time income increases. Another important difference is delayed gratification. Most people want immediate rewards. They upgrade lifestyles quickly because they associate spending with success. Wealthy people are often willing to delay visible rewards in exchange for long-term freedom. They may invest money for years before increasing consumption significantly. This patience allows compound growth to become extremely powerful over time. Compound growth is one of the greatest advantages wealthy people understand deeply. Small, consistent investments, repeated over years, eventually create exponential results. Most people underestimate this because they focus on short-term outcomes. Wealthy individuals think in decades instead of weeks. That perspective changes how decisions are made. They are less emotional during temporary setbacks because they focus on long-term systems instead of short-term comfort. Another critical difference is risk perception. Average consumers are often taught that investing is dangerous, while stable employment is safe. Wealthy people understand that depending entirely on one source of income can actually be extremely risky. They focus on diversification, ownership, and multiple income streams because they understand economic conditions can change quickly. Having investments, assets, and scalable systems creates resilience. The wealthy are not necessarily fearless with money. They are usually more educated about how money actually works. We also need to talk about debt because wealthy people and average consumers often use debt completely differently. Most people use debt to finance consumption. Cars, vacations, furniture, electronics, and lifestyle upgrades become financed through monthly payments. This creates ongoing financial pressure because the debt supports things that usually decline in value. Wealthy individuals often use debt strategically to acquire assets that produce future income or appreciation. This does not mean all wealthy people avoid debt entirely. It means they usually understand the difference between destructive debt and productive leverage. Productive leverage creates future value greater than the cost of borrowing. Destructive debt creates long-term payments without meaningful financial return. Average consumers often normalize carrying debt because monthly payments have become culturally accepted. But every payment represents future labor already committed. Wealthy people are extremely protective of future cash flow because they understand flexibility is valuable. Another major difference is financial education. Most people spend more time researching entertainment purchases than learning how investing, taxes, ownership, and cash flow actually work. Wealthy individuals often spend years studying business, finance, markets, negotiation, and wealth-building principles. They understand that financial knowledge compounds, just like money compounds. Better decisions repeated over time create enormous advantages. This is why wealthy people often invest heavily into education, mentors, networking, and skill development. They understand that increasing financial intelligence improves long-term outcomes dramatically. Another important distinction is that wealthy people usually think in systems instead of isolated transactions. Average consumers often focus on immediate results, while wealthy individuals focus on building repeatable systems that continue producing value over time. Systems reduce emotional decision-making and create consistency. This applies to investing, saving, business operations, and cash flow management. The wealthy understand that successful financial outcomes rarely come from isolated lucky events. They usually come from disciplined systems repeated for many years. Another important concept is opportunity cost. Every dollar spent today is a dollar that cannot compound tomorrow. Wealthy individuals constantly evaluate this trade-off. That is why they are often less impulsive with money even when they can easily afford purchases. They understand the long-term value of retained capital. Now we need to discuss time, because wealthy people value time differently than average consumers. Most people trade time directly for money their entire lives. Wealthy individuals eventually focus on building systems where money becomes less dependent on their personal labor. This is one of the biggest mindset shifts in wealth creation. The goal is not simply earning more. The goal is creating leverage. Leverage means building systems, investments, businesses, or assets capable of producing value repeatedly without requiring constant active effort. Average consumers often increase income but also increase obligations at the same pace. More income leads to larger payments, more debt, and more lifestyle pressure. Wealthy individuals usually focus on increasing flexibility instead. They want freedom over their schedule, decisions, and future. This is why financially successful people often prioritize investments over visible luxury. They understand that ownership creates future options, while endless consumption creates dependency. Another important difference is emotional control. Average consumers frequently make financial decisions emotionally. They spend money when stressed, bored, insecure, or seeking validation. Wealthy individuals are often more disciplined because they understand emotional decisions can destroy long-term progress. They separate short-term feelings from long-term strategy. That discipline compounds over time. Another important factor is environment. Wealthy people often surround themselves with individuals focused on growth, investing, ownership, and long-term thinking. Environment influences behavior powerfully. If someone constantly compares themselves to consumers focused on appearance, spending usually increases. If someone surrounds themselves with disciplined individuals focused on ownership and freedom, priorities begin shifting naturally. Another major difference is how success is measured. Average consumers often measure success through visible purchases. Wealthy individuals usually measure success through freedom, flexibility, ownership, cash flow, and reduced dependency. One mindset creates pressure, while the other creates peace. Wealthy people understand that true financial success is not about impressing strangers. It is about building a life where money creates options instead of stress. That is the real difference between looking rich and becoming financially free. If this helped, like and subscribe to the Daily Yield because we are building real success one step at a time.